Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Whatever your time zone, welcome. This is AI Talk, and I am your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. Today, we're here to discuss the topic of using AI to help process automation reach peak efficiency. The importance of AI in process automation is underscored by projections that by 2025, next year, AI will assist in 19 out of every 20 customer interactions. Think about that. This growing reliance on AI technologies highlights the need for organizations to adapt quickly and harness the power of AI for process automation. So, in this session, we will explore three areas to consider. First, we'll look at the future trends in AI and automation, examining how emerging technologies like generative AI, machine learning, and advanced robotics will reshape the landscape and what companies must do to stay ahead. We'll also be discussing the evolving role of AI in driving integration across all industries, including healthcare, manufacturing, and finance, where automation is already revolutionizing operations. We'll explore how intelligent automation can streamline enterprise critical processes, improving efficiency across organizations and operations, helping businesses cut costs while maintaining high standards of quality. And finally, we'll address the risks and challenges businesses face when adopting AI, from integration issues to concerns about data security and workforce disruption. Look, whether your organization is already leveraging AI or considering its potential, this session will provide some valuable insights to help you navigate the future of process automation. So stay tuned for another great discussion today with a great panel of guests. But look, as always, I would like to say thank you for everyone attending today. That includes the folks joining us on LinkedIn and also everyone joining us here today on Zoom. So thank you. It should be a great discussion. And I want to say we want to hear from you too. We'd like to encourage everyone attending today. So please participate. Please jump in with your comments in the chat section if you have a question along the way. I will attempt to get some of your questions and your comments into the flow of the show, and we'll have a few minutes also at the end for your questions. All right. We have a lot to cover, so let's jump right on in and introduce our guests, starting with Kirsten Jepson, Fractional Product Marketing Leader and Consultant. Kirsten, are you with us?
I'm here. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about AI.
Well, hello, Kirsten. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm in just north of Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Oh, wonderful. Oh, very good. Well, thank you, Kirsten, for being with us. Also joining us today is Yemi Alusin, Program Director and Business Transformation Strategist at the Change Hive. Yemi, welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from?
Hi, Kevin. Good to see you again. I'm calling from London.
London, very good. Thank you so much, Yemi, for joining us today. And also with us is Martin Miller. He is former Director of AI and Machine Learning Production Operations at Levi Strauss. Martin, where are you calling in from?
Hello, everybody. Hi, I am calling in from lovely Pleasanton, California.
Pleasanton, California. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It should be a great discussion. And to get us jumped into the topic today, I'd like to point our attention to an article published recently by Business Reporter uh, titled How AI-Driven Automation and Data Can Boost Your Organization's Efficiency. In the article, it talks about how organizations across industries are recognizing AI's potential to revolutionize operational efficiency by automating process tasks. Organizations are looking to improve responsiveness, reduce costs, and drive innovation. But how do you do it? Well, the article points to a couple of things that I think are important to point out really quickly here. And number one is purpose-built AI solutions. Look, unlike generic AI, purpose-built AI focuses on solving specific challenges tailored to specific processes. And these pre-made process build solutions allow us to move more quickly without having to reinvent the wheel. So I think that's an important thing to consider. The other one is real-time decision making. Look, I believe in the adage, good data equals good decisions, and integrating AI with data processing enhances our responsiveness and decision making. But overall, the article warns us that in order to maximize AI's real benefits, we must adopt a holistic approach to fostering a data-driven culture and upskilling employees and investing in scalable infrastructures. It's an interesting article. I'm wondering from the group what your impressions are of this article. Like to start with you, Kirsten, if I may, what are your thoughts on the article? Did it miss anything important that we should also consider it?
One thing that I think is really important is thinking through how different parts of an enterprise work together, because there's different paces at which AI can impact different parts of an organization. My perspective is primarily from a marketing perspective. Martin's, who's on the call, is from, I think, more of an operations perspective. How do we work together across enterprises to bring out the best of what we're all doing from an AI perspective? So I think that's one of the things that I would have liked to have dug a little bit deeper in than the article. And I think that's what we'll be talking about a bit today too. So I'm excited to continue to pursue that thought.
Well, from a marketing perspective, what is your advice for organizations looking to bridge those gaps between uh, organizational silos? How do we work all together in uh, leveraging AI for process automation to its fullest extent? Do you have a suggestion for us?
Well, I think the first thing is to think about, are there groups of people that are regularly working together with the same objectives? So starting with objectives and strategies that include AI, but not only include AI, but consider the company's objectives and where each of these areas are. Two of the industries that you mentioned earlier are financial services and healthcare. Those are big. Those are companies that have really big challenges because personalization in marketing is, one of the number one things that we think about. What if we make a mistake in that regulatory environment? What kind of impact does that have? So, that's one example of a story that could go bad when everybody had the right intentions. So, thinking through how that impacts organizationally is something that needs to be talked about regularly, not just in marketing.
So it's about the technology, but it's also about the people and the organization itself. Now,
Yes.
Yemi, you are a business transformation strategist. What are your thoughts on this article? Did it miss anything important? And what are your thoughts on the recommendations about purpose-driven solutions and real-time decision making?
Sure, no, thank you, Kevin. I thought it was a good article. I like its emphasis on data. So data being the foundation of any kind of AI project. I think that's super important to note, because the quality of the data and how clean the data is forms the foundation of whether or not the AI project will be successful. Otherwise, you may have correct data leading to like inaccurate predictions or the AI model going wrong. So I like that. I also liked that it talked about how it's going to transform the workforce. I agree with that. So it'll make employees ideally better at doing their jobs, because now most of the processing and the repetitive mundane tasks should over time get automated away. And that would mean that human beings can do what humans are best at, connecting with other human beings and really establishing that human connection. And I feel like the companies that would win in this whole AI revolutions are the ones that are able to use AI to automate away all the mundane, repetitive tasks so they can focus and really build that deep human connection with their customers and other employees and other stakeholders within the wider ecosystem. I also like the focus on purpose-built AI. I almost think about templates. So remember the first back in the day when Word first came out and you had all the word templates for different things. Similar kind of landscape, right? So when you design an AI agent or AI solution, you want to try and customize it for a specific use case so that once you have cleaned it up and gotten rid of all the biases, you're basically building up on lessons learned from previous projects. So you're not reinventing the wheel every time. So I think there were some really good points. Oh, there's one more thing about risk mitigation. It talks a lot about risk mitigation. I think that's important, especially for us in Europe. So taking into cognizance any kind of compliance rules and making sure that any AI project that you're embarking on is not violating any regulations. Nobody wants to be on the front page of a newspaper for the wrong reasons, right? What I thought could have been done differently, perhaps, is talking, or what I would like to see more of the article do is talking about the cost implications and ROI. So it's like, what's the typical how much time, how much effort would it take to deploy such a solution? What's the typical ROI, and how long would you have to wait before you start to see ROI? Because I think sometimes people kind of back out of these projects too soon because like, oh, it's working. We deployed it yesterday. We can't see results today. Why isn't it working? So are we giving it long enough to really work to test? And then also, I would like some mention around like, of course, with any change, there'll be resistance, right? So it's how do you make sure that there's clear communication and you're carrying your employees and other stakeholders along on the journey and being clear that
Mm.
AI is not necessarily going to replace them. Hopefully, you should come in and help them be better at their job. So it would be good, it would have been good to see more of the change management aspect, how you carry people along, and then also how you manage the cost and the ROI to make sure you're not just going after shiny objects.
You mentioned ROI, and we've talked about this on the show before. I mean, the first place that organizations look for in ROI is labor costs. And when we talk about process automation, the instant fear that people have is that AI is going to, some sort of AI bot or a pre-made solution is going to replace their jobs and they will not be reskilled. They'll just be let go and the company will take that ROI. How do we reassure our employees that indeed that is not the case? Or is this just a veiled attempt to just, you know, help people through the process of this change, but the real story is that indeed jobs will be eliminated. What do we say to people that have that fear about their losing their jobs to AI?
That question back to me.
Yes, Yemi.
I think yeah, sure. I think the response to that is using examples or case studies of clients that have actually deployed AI right now. So the kind of use cases we're seeing using AI is things like automating inventory, automating like prediction of in a small cafe, for example, like knowing, okay, we're about to run low on stock or how many customers do we tend to have, how can we order inventory to match the demand we're seeing? That tends to be very tedious work that humans are not very good at. So in this scenario, I'm giving an example of, so that inventory management and supply management, that was all automated away, or things like sending reminders and chasers as well. That's all been automated away with AI. That now frees up the front of house staff to really spend the time talking to the customer and telling them about the new products and new services that we've introduced. It's like, hey, we just have this new Christmas latte that we've introduced. Would you like to try it? Or would you like an extra shot on that? So by spending that extra time with the customer, they're actually seeing that their sales are going up because now you can have an actual conversation. You're not worried about, oh, I need to get you out of the door ASAP because I need to go order inventory and I can't talk to you or have a conversation. So that's an example of where, in this case, it's meant that this representative has seen their own sales go up because now they have more time to talk. Other examples we're seeing is employers, larger employers, more so the case, taking the time to retrain and reskill their staff and giving them skills around like data. Like I said earlier on, a key starting point for any AI project is the quality of the data. So a lot of retraining I'm seeing is more around data. So getting existing employees to help with uploading the data, cleaning and scrubbing the data, and getting it ready for AI to then come in and take the role.
Can
And
I just
Martin, what are
layer
your
on top
impressions
of
of the article? I know, Martin, you have worked previously with Levi Strauss as director of AI and ML production operations, so you're very familiar with this aspect from an operational point of view. What are your thoughts on the article, and did it miss anything important that we should consider?
Yeah, I think one of the clear evidential things that everybody's talking about is the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. How does it impact them? Will they lose their job? And it's really critical to consider the upskilling factor. And we should be bringing everybody along for this journey. I mean, Kevin, let's be honest. There's the manual screwdriver, there's the electric screwdriver, and there's the impact driver. You can put the same bit on each of them, but each has a better purpose for the application. So we call AI artificial intelligence, but for me, it's more augmented intelligence as it applies to the enterprise. And you can use it to help digitally upskill people. You can use it as a model for people to learn and then be inspired. Many of us been using this augmented intelligence for a long time and didn't realize it. If you write and you have these spell checkers built into your writing implements, prior to the typewriter time, Kevin, we used the dictionary, and now we We have these things called Grammarly and other plugins to our word processor and our online tools. They might anticipate the next word we're writing. They may give us choices or correct our use of words. I'd say the future is very bright, and the human in the middle part is very important. So let's underplay the artificial and focus more on the augmentation of intelligence.
All right. Well, the article is from Business Reporter. It is how AI-driven automation and data can boost your organization's efficiency. There is a link to the article here in the chat feature here if you're with us on Zoom. So please take a look at it. Let us know what you think about the article. How is AI and process automation affecting your organization for good or better or worse? And tell us a little bit about what your experience has been. We'd like to hear from you as well. All right, everybody, let's jump into our main discussion points today. And I'd like to start by talking about future trends in AI and automation. Here we are at the end of 2024. We're about ready to go into 2025. So I'm curious where we're headed. And so, Yemi, I'd like to start with you if I could. With the rise of generative AI, it can reshape and will be reshaping industries like we've mentioned, healthcare, finance, by automating decision making, data analysis, creating more efficient workflows. Yemi, where do you see the development of generative AI and AI in general influencing the future of process automation in industries like healthcare and finance?
Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin. I have to say, I really like Martin's point about augmented intelligence. I'm going to be stealing that one. That was a good point. Um, so where do I see it playing a role? I think so it's playing a role more in terms of it's for most organizations, AI, augmented intelligence, is still fairly new and fairly recent, right? So we're proceeding with caution. So most organizations are using it more in the back end, as smaller business and medium-sized businesses are using more in the back end and maybe at the very beginning of the customer journey, because we're finding that customers that are overusing AI are actually losing people because you can tell when something was written by AI or when something was overly automated. So really it is finding what are the repetitive, redundant, mundane tasks and finding a way to use low code and no code tools is an example of tools, AI that has been with us, like using like Microsoft Power Automate to um, automate these processes away and systemize them in a way that where a human would have spent like hours trying to send reminders, trying to um, check order levels and see when it's time to reorder a stock. All the kind of repetitive, or in healthcare, for example, sending patient reminders, sending patient follow-ups. Those touch points are now being like automated away with workflow tools, either using a CRM tool or using like a low code, no code tool that's sitting on top of existing data, and then building the workflow using those tools has been the way. Another way that I'm seeing people using it really well actually is using AI as a thought partner. So using it as a bit of a coach. So if you're in a bit of a conundrum and you're not sure how to proceed, of course, without divulging too much information or personal details, you can go into like a AI tool and actually have a conversation with it and say to you, act as my coach or act as my this. Here is the situation. Again, making sure you don't give away any sensitive or personal information. Or in the case of technology, for example, you may have lots of different systems. I've seen this being used, lots of different systems within your tech stack, and you're like, I've got potentially repetitive technologies. Can you advise me on the best ways to streamline my technology stack in a way that makes sense for my business? So again, you can use AI as a way to act as a bit of an advisor, initial advisor, before you then reach out to a third party human expert to validate what AI has told you. So I think those are two key quick ways to leverage AI quite quickly, right? So automating processes and also using it as an advisor, as a coach.
Hmm. Now, Kirsten, ethical challenges such as data privacy, AI biases, workplace displacement we've been talking about will become more pressing as AI's role in process automation expands in 2025 and beyond. As as this continues to evolve, what are the emerging ethical considerations that you feel that businesses should be aware of and address right away?
Well, I think we need to be very careful around where we apply AI to start. There needs to be a lot of testing, careful segmentation that's done. Some of the industries that you talked about, the financial services and healthcare industry, will probably not be the earliest adopters, other than with those lower risk connections, like the client reminders that Yemi brought up. That's a great example of that's really not a high risk interaction, whereas maybe doing something internally that a doctor, something a doctor might use, that's a higher risk because they're already in a place where there's HIPAA in the US to think through. So yeah, I mean, I think those will probably not be the earliest places where AI is adopted. One thought that I wanted to kind of layer on what Yemi and Martin were saying about where there is opportunity for use of AI is we have to remember that it takes a human to train AI. So when people are worried about, losing their jobs, losing their skill set, so on and so forth, somebody had to train that next level screwdriver, and it was a human that did that. So a lot of these jobs are not going away. Someone has to train the path that the automation is taking before it is ready to be used in a higher risk or customer facing environment. So just some thoughts around what we're talking about.
Now, Martin, when we think about process automation, most of us automatically think about something like manufacturing or logistics, that where AI robots are taking over more complex, high precision sort of physical tasks. In your opinion, what are some of the advancements in AI-driven robotics that will play a role in the next year that we should consider when it comes to these kinds of physical tasks, and what are the benefits and risks of that?
Interesting. So, as I was going to pick up on the earlier comment in medical, but let's go forward with that thought process. One of my companies is analyzing physical movement of people on a manufacturing floor, and actually for package delivery, without naming who the clients might be, and looking at body mechanics for the potential of injury and recovery. So the augmented intelligence tooling has cameras and sensors and watches the human move and can advise specifically movement and training of movement for those individuals to prevent injury. And just think of package delivery as a target market, and the insurers that behind that offer a better policy to those companies that are using these type of technologies. That's a great example. But if I want to spin off where I was going to start, medical records, very fragmented. Input data from the physician is taken orally often, and you're seeing current usage where physicians are actually going from verbal to text into their input systems and using augmented intelligence to help them guide a patient's success journey for healthcare. So we already have applications that make sense. What's really important to point out is that whole concept of AI as your coach has some merit, and where it falls apart is where subject matter expertise needs to be able to question the output. And subject matter expertise is very difficult to come up with. It's usually years of experience. And without the years of experience, how do you question the results are accurate or even worthy for adoption for your clinical or physical needs?
Well, that's an important point. And in 10 years, where will be that experience? Will it still exist in the organization, or will it be automated away? It's a good question. All right. Well, look, we are starting to get some questions coming in from our audience. This one coming in from Boris. Boris, thank you so much for your comment and question today. Boris says, as we move towards a future where AI is increasingly integrated into our operations, what strategies can organizations implement to mitigate potential risks, such as job displacement and the ethical concerns, while maximizing the benefits of AI-driven automation? I'll put this out to the group. Anyone have some thoughts for Boris on this?
Okay, so I do have a thought. I came from the CX industry, the customer experience industry, where this has been a concern for a really long time, even when chatbots were first introduced, which is 15 years ago. So what I would say is, I touched on this a bit earlier, there still needs to be a human that trains the applications that we are talking about as being AI. They're not really AI yet, they're machine learning. So the machines are learning how to do and how to respond and how to replace. We talk about AI as if it's arrived, it's in its infancy. And the companies that are addressing the earlier training of the bots, training of the responses, they're the ones that are going to get ahead faster rather than leaping directly to, oh, I'm going to connect to a database and it's going to have the right answer. Probably not, unless somebody is mitigating what happens or vetting what happens in between. So those that can come up with the process flows that make sense are the ones that are going to be able to introduce all of this automation faster, because it's still early days. So I have always thought that it's about that middle layer, getting there with that middle layer and not jumping so far ahead that you're automating before the process is ready.
All right. Well, very good.
I
Well, please go ahead. Yes.
want to say I agree with Kirsten. Boris, I think great question. I think it's to what Martin was saying. I think for now, listening of AI as augmented intelligence or as your intelligence assistant, it's not yet at the point where it's going to coarsely displace human beings. I mean, right now in current news, I mean, Microsoft has been driving Copilot adoption, but most organizations that have deployed it without having the right processes in place have found that they now have oversharing problems. So you have organizations that just went out and rolled out Copilot, which is Microsoft's AI tool. And now they find that Copilot has gone in and has access to HR data and the CEO's email. So employees can go into Copilot and say, hi, Copilot, tell me the company's 5-year plan. And it'll come back and say, well, in 5 years, you plan to shut down the South African office. You plan to fire. It's like, so it's divulged confidential information that the company would rather keep private. This is an example of where we have gone way too far with AI adoption because we haven't taken the time to think about things like strategically. So to the point about is it going to displace all jobs? No, because we're still a long way off. We still need to like look through all of our data, clean it up, correctly classify it so that the AI tool knows what it should have access to and what it should divulge information about, what it can't. So the permissioning still needs to be worked out. That's one example of a use case that is still being trashed out actively right now. And then also if you look at the even less technical than that, with content writing, when AI first came out, some content creators thought, okay, that's it. I don't have to think anymore. I'm just going to go into AI and get AI to write all of my content for me. And guess what? They lost so many followers because it just felt very robotic. And like humans know humans, right? So we know when a human is talking and when a bot is talking, and we can feel it. So I would not be overly panicking about job loss, but I would for sure be actively encouraging everybody on my team to keep an eye. I think the days of job for life is long gone. We all need to keep up to date with what's happening, either by watching YouTube videos, reading a book a month, or something. Just find a way to make sure you're always developing your skills and staying relevant to whatever industry you're part of. I think is the message, not you're going to lose your job tomorrow.
All right, very good. We are here today with Yemi Alusian, Kirsten Jepson, and Martin Miller. We're talking about using AI for process automation. And if you have a comment or question for our group today, please pop it into the chat feature. And thank you, Boris, for your comment here today. All right, folks, I'd like to move us on to our next discussion point today, and that is how intelligent automation, process automation can streamline enterprise critical processes. We've been really circling this topic already. my big question here are what are some real world examples where businesses have achieved significant improvements in efficiency in process operations by using AI to automate the process? Can anyone give me some good examples that we might consider as our listeners are moving into 2025 and where they might apply the techniques and technologies? Kirsten, do you have some examples?
Sure. So my specialty being marketing, some examples are research, so customer segmentation research. Automation AI has the ability to really drill through a lot of data very quickly and allow companies to segment their ideal customers quite quickly in ways that they couldn't do before. And what that means is that companies are now able to personalize the customer experience in a much more profound way than they have in the past. And that is really important because it's the next step to what we were talking about earlier, which is that touch that's needed by companies in order for them to do, make the best possible connection from a brand perspective. And then content creation. So content creation is huge right now when it comes to marketing and automating content creation. We touched on it a little bit earlier with Copilot. So a lot of marketers and content creators are thinking about, oh, I can, use Copilot to create my blog posts. People see through that very quickly. I just read something really funny on LinkedIn where somebody said, if I see the word ensuring anymore in the last sentence of a paragraph, I think I'm going to scream because it's a word that's used by AI when it writes for us, by whatever tool you're using. So those are the kind of things where people are not going away. It's an example of where people aren't going away. However, say you are in Portugal and you want to write something in English, but your first language is Portuguese. It's a great way to get a start, or a great way to test whether what you wrote is correct. So using it as a test is something that I've seen a lot. So those are some like real world examples. The best content creators are not using AI exclusively. They might use it to set the stage, but they're not using it without going through it first to make sure it's correct. And that's content creators that are creating content in volume, a lot of volume. So
Content
those are some
creation is
examples.
certainly one area that is ripe for application of AI in process automation. Other areas come to my mind are like financial institutions are using AI to automate risk assessments, for example. What are some other industry examples and applications that maybe are less common that we believe that we feel will be emergent in 2025? Martin, do you have some other examples that we should consider?
Well, I did pick up on the one for medical records, but let me step back to where Kirsten brought up closer to marketing. Central to marketing and sales are these systems called CRMs and adjacent applications that link into CRMs. The augmented intelligence techniques can be used to cleanse the data, to reduce the churn of the data, and help you pinpoint attributes of the data, which is sort of magic. Think about you're trying to mine who to talk to at a specific company, and you're able to use some magic tooling around a CRM that helps you find a couple personas and perhaps their web trends and where they may be looking or favoriting things that they're actually looking for openly. So you could use that to zero in. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, and you'll find 5 small needles with this approach, but that 5 small needles may get you to the one you need, which I find sort of magic. And I've been promoting that technique for a little bit. There's a few companies in these areas doing this. I see that changing the long haul of how long it takes to clean the data and get the data better. A real win-win for everyone, and wonderful for sales and marketing.
Now, Yemi, as we discuss the expansion of AI and automation, what role do you think governments should play in terms of regulations and ensuring ethical implementation across industries?
I think it's an interesting one because I can imagine being in a government, you're torn between allowing innovation to happen versus making sure people are not taking advantage of. I think we already have some regulation in place, right? So in the EU, for example, we've got the GDPR regulation. Um, and that's been, I think, the core key one for us. I don't know. To be honest, I'm torn on this one. I was just yesterday. I was I was in an economics. I was in a workshop yesterday about economics, and seeing how especially the UK is a bit lagging behind on innovation. UK and Europe in general are lagging behind on innovation because we're heavily regulated, and our US counterparts are like blazing the trail because you're not as regulated as we are. So I'm hesitant on this one because I feel like we're already super regulated here. I'm like, I almost don't want any more regulation because it's almost hindering our productivity. Our productivity is nowhere near where the US is, and I'm getting concerned about you find like entrepreneurs are starting businesses here in Europe and going off to the US to scale, and we're losing. There's a whole brain drain happening, so I'm hesitant. Sorry to comment on more regulation. That's not the answer you wanted, but I think we do have some regulation. It's I think it's now more making sure things are done ethically, right? So the concern I'm seeing more is more how do we make sure in all this AI adoption we're not introducing or carrying on the biases that we have in our human interactions into our AI models. So how are we making sure that the teams that are building the AI are as diverse as they possibly can be? And I don't think
Mhm.
that can be regulated. I think that's more us talking a lot more about it and making sure the teams that we have around us to build the models that we're building are diverse and are representative of the people that we're looking to attract.
Mm.
Because I think most of the use cases that are HR related, where AI has tried to be adopted, haven't necessarily been very successful. They've tended to favor a certain demographic because historically that demographic has been successful in getting those roles. So it's not that the AI was wrong, it's just us as humans. And it could also be a case of history because women were not always able to work. Women have only really fairly recently compared to history come into the workplace. So if the AI has the whole, depends on how wide the data is, men would of course be more represented in that data because historically men were working way before women got into the workplace. So it's thinking about those kind of nuances, right? Is how do you program the AI such that it can take into account? And this is why I'm not worried about humans losing their jobs because this kind of things require some human thought processes and some human intervention to step in and be like,
Mm.
I know the AI says this and it's right, but however, as a human, I want to override it because this is why behind it. So I don't know that regulation is the answer. I think it's more um I don't know, ethics, more like making sure
Right.
that we are all holding each other accountable as humans, and calling people out, but not in a way that cancels people, but is a, oh, that doesn't make sense. Like, are you sure? So let's do it with some love and compassion as we all get on this AI journey.
Martin, did you have a comment?
100%. Well, I support where Yemi's coming from, but let me just go adjacent to that. And there needs to be some accountability, a lot of accountability. So it start at home and take a couple, whether you're married or partners, and you've been living together for 30 years and you have shared income and you file taxes together, and one has a credit rating of X and the other one has a credit rating of Y. And you look at it and you're going, we're both paying the same bills. Our net income together is the same. Our credit rating should be within a couple points of each other. But my wife, her credit rating is, I don't know, 30, 40 points lower than mine today. But, 4 years ago, it was 100 points lower. It made no sense. And so I think that's an example of where there may be gender bias. and that's not okay. That's not okay at all.
Mhm.
And then we can get into ethnicity bias, and that's not okay also. So how do you combat that? And that's, I think we can use technology, augmented intelligence, to help synthesize the volume of data where it's not represented, to better represent those marginalized areas. And I think that's super helpful.
Tell me more about that. So how do we talk about bias and that it's a bad thing, but what do we really do about that? I mean, are there steps that we can take as an organization? Can the technology itself, the AI itself, be used to mitigate these kinds of risks? I'm a little unsure. We talk about the need to combat bias and ensure data privacy, but I often am at a loss as to really understand how. Any
Sure.
comments there?
Sure. I mean, let me keep it in the same vein of where I started. If I have a representation of, let's say, 1 million males and their demographic and all their data that's built up, and I only have a demographic of 200,000 females, there's an imbalance of, in ratio. So you can synthesize the representation of the smaller data set to level set against equality or equity, if you like to call that, and then reapply a training model and see how that works. So that's an example. It's not perfect, but we as humans are not perfect. We are working towards perfection, as we know, and the best we can do is accept improvement, accept change, and question when things don't look right.
All right, we are here today with Martin Miller, formerly with Levi Strauss in AI and ML production operations, also Kristen Jepson, fractional product marketing leader and consultant, and Yemi Lucian, business transformation strategist at the Change Hive. Now, folks, where has all our time gone? It's been another great discussion, but our time has flown by so quickly that we have reached the action item round of the program. I'm wondering if each of you could provide us with one quick action item that our viewers can use to take advantage of the ideas and advice here today. Kirsten, I'd like to start with you. Do you have an action item for us?
Sure. I'm going to say that as a marketer, continue to work across the organization to share what you're doing, to connect points, to help the rest of the organization understand how you're using AI as a whole to advocate for the customer and for the employees in the organization. That's what I would say is as would be my favorite action item. I'm going to add a second one based on what Martin said, and that is call out when you see something happening that is not right. The example of 200 versus 800, can't remember the exact number, but somebody had to call out and say rebalance that data. And that is a great start, but somebody has to be calling that out, and that's on all of us.
That is Kirsten Jepson. Kirsten, thank you so much for being with us again today. Yemi, do you have an action item for us today?
Sure, yes, I do. Thank you again for a good conversation again. So I think action item is perhaps education, I think is key. I think there's still a lot of panic and worry and skepticism about AI. So if I was a manager or leading a team, I'll be encouraging my team to look into taking one or two AI courses over the holidays or something. I just keep abreast or follow a podcast or follow something that keeps you up to speed on what is happening, just so you can start to distinguish fact from myth and and dispel some of the fear. And then for a leader in an organization, I would say, as I always say, Kevin, I think you're probably bored of hearing this, is before you think about doing any adoptions, take a step back and really map out the process on pen and paper. Pen and paper is always a starting point, I think, for any change or transformation, is what exactly is the process? I find that most people get wrong or go wrong with this because they see AI as this panacea that's going to come and fix everything, but they don't really take the time to really understand what currently is happening and what exactly do you want. Like, so getting that clarity on what's the as is and what do you actually want, what's the to be model that you want. being clear on paper would then make it, would then help you decide whether AI is the right way to go about it, is a better solution or something else to go about it. So those are my two action points: education and be clear on what the current processes are on paper first.
Very good. Thank you. That is Yemi Alusian. Yemi, thank you so much for that, and thank you for being with us again today. And finally, Martin. Martin, do you have an action item for us?
Oh boy, Kevin, you had to ask. Thank you. Well, let's start. I'll concur with much that has already been said, but I'll give a little more of a guided uh, prompt here, where I will offer to our audience anybody that wants a free copy of my co-authored book, AI in a Weekend. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to send you a PDF copy. Or you can go on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and purchase it. Your patron is appreciated. Also, the Unriveted podcast, where I host with John Stukup, and we speak to authors around artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and people. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, very good. That is Martin Miller. Martin, Kirsten, Yemi, thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation today. Your perspectives and advice were spot on. Thank you so much. I hope that we'll get a chance to talk again soon. And to everyone joining us today, thank you too. And Boris, we want to thank you for your comment today. Indeed, you are the winner of an AI Talk mug, and we will be in touch with you shortly. So drink in good health and think of us whenever you're sipping on a beverage in your AI Talk mug. Well, all right. And so join us again next time. We're going to be on a bit of a hiatus for the holidays. Join us again next time on January 14th with another great panel of guests. We'll be discussing, will the rollout of AI leave your organization short of skills? That should be another great discussion. In the meantime, if you'd like to connect with me, you can do so on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there. Check me out. I'm Kevin Crane. And you can check out my weekly audio podcast, the Digital Transformation Podcast. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of AI Talk. And until next time, I'm Kevin Crane. Thanks for watching.